How's everyone out there today? Brian Clement, the director of the Hippocrates Health Institute. I just got back from a tour of Eastern Canada. I was all over the Toronto area. It was great to see a lot of our friends and new people, and we see a renaissance of consciousness happening up there. This week I want to speak about the unfortunate happenings here in the United States and now sadly, slowly but surely around the world, of opioid use. I'm going to be speaking about this at a medical conference on Friday morning. Just the other day I was reading an article where they discovered that one of the manufacturers of these opioids were actually finding ways to market doctors in a way that they could promote the use of opioids. Now this is unfortunate, since the data and statistics are clear today that 70% of the people who are heroin users in the United States also happen to have started that from a prescription drug that a doctor gave in his or her office. We must start to look at this in a much more serious way and not just hand out medicines for people who have light to moderate problems. There are times that no question that these very, very strong anti-pain medicines are required. But that should be looked at in a very critical way, short term, so that the doctor is absolutely clear that there's not going to be abuse of this medicine. When I looked at the history of this, and I wrote about this in one of my books, and I lecture about this worldwide, the oxycodone medicines were actually presented in the mid-19th century, not the 20th century, not the 21st century, the mid-19th century. Because by then they actually recognized that heroin was addictive, and that's what was being used before that, the true opiates. And the synthetics came on and off the market very rapidly because they discovered all the way back then, 150 years ago or more, that these were equally, if not more so, addictive. And what I've read about this and talked to colleagues in medicine about is that it may actually be more addictive, that some people have the metabolism and the mindset that after one or two uses of these medicines, they have a requirement to continue to take the opiates. So pretty shocking information that we now know that at least one of the manufacturers of these addictive medicines are actually promoting the sales through their distributors' physicians. And that should not only be frowned upon, but that should be scrutinized to a point where it's illegal, and that anyone that's proceeding in that pursuit should be closed down. We also have a situation where the state of West Virginia here in the United States has the hardest of all problems. It's the largest opiate use in the United States. Well, the other day, they finally concluded that they needed to have the antidote medicine to opioids. So the fire departments and the police throughout the state, when they go out, which is quite often in the state of West Virginia, and find somebody who's overdosed on opiates, that they are now not as doctors or not as nurses or not as paramedics, but as police officers and firemen, having the ability to inject this antidote into the overdosed opiate person and save their lives. Because by the time you find somebody who's overdosed, and by the time the paramedic may get there or they get to the hospital, often these people die. And so this is a frightening, frightening proposition. Now, I'm going to change the subject a bit and give you my commentary on why I think this is happening. That there's a overwhelming desperation in the public, not only here in the United States, but worldwide. There tends to be almost a universal fear among people today. They are lacking direction. They are lacking value-driven lives. They're wandering and confused. And often, because of that confusion and fear, they are not surviving economically the way they should. And their lifestyles become harder and more difficult to endure and to live. And when that desperation comes to such a high level that we often see people now hiding from their lives by taking dope. And before, it was sort of a dark thing that you would have to go onto a corner late at night and purchase from a drug dealer. But today we can go into the finest offices around the United States and seemingly in other countries in the world now and have a prescription given to us. And here in the state that I reside in, that Hippocrates Health Institute's in, this was actually called a pill mill state, because it was not only common that doctors, not all of course, but many would write prescriptions, but people would come in with nonsense symptoms, fabricating and making up symptomology and be given medicines, and then the doctor would continually write prescriptions. Now, many of these people have been stopped and their license have been pulled, but on the other hand, much of this is still going on. And I don't fault an individual or a profession, I fault a system that pretty much is broken. And in my view, we have to correct the system by putting mandates into place that prevent such absurdities, that literally take away young lives. And until we're ready to put money and profits second and human lives first, we're going to have this concern. And this is representative of a valueless culture, a culture in a society that pretty much is lost in materialism, one that literally doesn't value love and community and family support and respect and all of the pillars of a sound and sane culture in society. So my message today, quite simply, is that if you are one of the people that feel so lost that you're diverting your attention by getting high, find yourself. Find deep down in your heart who you were as a little girl, a little boy. Find a way to rediscover that joy that you had and the passion that you should be living. Make sure that the choices you make are choices that are not only instantaneously going to fulfill the need you have, but choices that are going to enrich your life over the long run. Here at the Hippocrates Health Institute, we actually represent life to people in a way that when they receive it and accept it, they're able to regain that joy, that happiness, and the elation and enthusiasm that's required to live a life of abundance and well-being, a life far away from desperation, but a life of contribution. Because once we're whole and once we're happy and once we know who we are and why we're here, we have then the inner strength, the energy, the ability, and the consciousness to contribute. So continue on a life of contribution. Become very secure in who you are by living truth. And most important, let's help those people in our community that are struggling now by showing love and not condemnation. Be well. See you soon.